Good morning. We've already got somebody commenting. Good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. I just got back from I went down to Los Angeles and everybody's like, don't you know we're in a pandemic? Yes, I do. My sister is moving out of state, which makes me really, really sad. Good morning, Jessica. My sister is moving from Orange County to Idaho, and it's the last week before my girls start school. So my daughters and I found a cute little vacation rental. Good morning. And we were able to go over to my friend's house. She has a big pool and a backyard area. So my sister got to come, my nephews, and hey, Janelle. Hey, Kelly. So we got to visit and yeah, but it was a very spur of the moment trip to Los Angeles. And then we had internet issues at our house and the house we were in. And I'm so behind on emails and life and everything, but it's okay. It'll all work out. So thank you all for joining me this morning. Let's see, what is on the agenda? Oh, I got the cutest cup from my friend Heidi. She's one of my lemonade sisters. She came to my retreat in 2016, and I'm probably not going to do retreats anymore, which makes me kind of sad. But not in-person retreats, not for a while anyway. Good morning. Oh, yay. Able to tune in before I head to work finally. That's awesome. Good morning, Doug. Good morning, Gigi. Libra, Aquarius, Leo. Anyway, good morning, everyone, and thanks for tuning in. We're going to jump right into the questions. For those of you who have mediation coming up, most of us are forced to do mediation, whether we want to or not. I know here in California, it's an absolute requirement. I do have an online course for mediation this week. I don't remember what day it is, but if you are interested, I have a much different philosophy than most people do when it comes to mediation with a narcissist. I actually think if you shift your mind to a strategy mindset, that ultra marathon mindset, mediation can actually be a positive experience. And it's all in the way you look at it. And so much of this is, it's strategy, and it takes so many, it takes a long time to get to that mindset. Some people are never able to. And so I always love opportunities to share with people. It took me over 2 years to figure out the amount of strategy that is involved in child custody battles in the family court system and when you're up against a narcissist, because let's admit, they look at life like a big chessboard. They're always 2 steps ahead. They're moving players around on the board. We're just sitting here being human, being normal, enjoying life, and everything is calculated for them. And so, no, we don't ever want to get into that mindset. That's not what it's about. You can't become narcissistic by thinking strategically. But strategy, I know how helpful it was in my case when I was able to, learn how to compartmentalize the emotions. So or a poker game, exactly. If you have mediation coming up in the future, you can go to the One Mom's Battle website, click education, and then choose online courses. And I want to say it's on the 28th, but don't quote me on that. And even if you can't tune into it live, you will get the recording afterwards to watch at your own convenience. So I try to make it super easy. Maryland forced mediation. Yeah, same with California. Yeah, you've got a different situation where he's a sex offender. You cannot, I mean, it's a whole nother topic and a very painful one. I just talked to a mom yesterday who her daughter is being sexually abused. The court system, CPS came in and basically said, we're not here to investigate him. We're here to investigate you for coaching your child. And first of all, I've been doing this for 10 years. I can say with all honesty, I have never once encountered a sexual abuse situation where I thought someone was coaching a child. Who would do that? Nobody would do that. These stories are real. They hit my desk every single week. And, part of me, when I was down in Los Angeles, I was talking to my sister and she was saying, I Googled the sex offenders nearby in the new town we're moving into, and just to make sure there were none in my neighborhood. And I'm not naive. I know the ones that actually make it onto a registry have to be the extreme. And the reality is they're everywhere. So I'm laying in bed one night at the vacation rental in Los Angeles, and I went on Megan's Law. In a 5-mile radius around me, you cannot even believe the number of sex offenders that were surrounding me. I did not sleep well that night. I actually got up and I checked all the locks on the windows again. And what we know is that 1 in 4 girls, let's just use girls as an example, are sexually abused by the time they turn 18. Why the family court system doesn't align with that reality, why they are so disconnected on this topic, blows my mind. But I know a lot of states here in California, if you lodge sexual abuse claims against the other party and they're unfounded, they can file to take custody from you. And I know other states are like that also. I will continue to speak out about this topic. Child sexual abuse in the family court system is, I almost feel like I'm the crazy one. Like I'm in an alternate reality where I just want to shake everybody and say, what is wrong with you? How can you, say a 4-year-old story changed? Have you ever had a conversation with a 4-year-old? Their stories change about things all the time. That is common. We know that when a child first discloses, this topic is just, I hear about it and I don't normally post GoFundMe accounts. On One Mom's Battle, people send me a lot of them and they all break my heart because I know the reality of, the expense of fighting for your kids and legal fees and all of that. So I have a general policy where I just don't share GoFundMes because I don't have a way to properly verify the story, the situation. But I was put in touch with this mom yesterday. I know her story. I believe her story. I know her attorney. And so I shared her situation on the One Mom's Battle Facebook page. If you're interested in reading about what she's going through, it's just unbelievable to me that this is even an issue, in that we're even having to fight to protect kids and putting them back into situations where we know they are being sexually abused. And one of the most heartbreaking topics. Hi, Deanna. Good morning. Good morning. Okay, so now that I'm off my rant about sexual abuse in the family court system as it relates to narcissists, we're going to answer some questions. For those of you who are new, questions can be sent in through the Instagram stories on One Mom's Battle. We post a question every week and you can ask your question, or they can be emailed to coffeedatewithtina@gmail.com. I will tell you, I have an enormous backlog of questions, so I'm doing my best. Send me questions that don't involve background, just general questions. And then my fine print disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. I cannot give you legal advice. All I can do is share my own journey and what I see on the battlefield of the family court system. If it were in foster care, it would matter, but custody does not. Yeah, and from what I've heard, CPS makes money or gets kickbacks from the government if they take, so if they were to walk into a home, a married couple, not in family court, and there was child sexual abuse, there was, abuse in the home, drugs, whatever. If they take that child out of that situation and place them in the system, and then that child is adopted out to a new family, from what I've been told, they get enormous kickbacks from that. That's where they make their money. And the family court stuff, their job is to open the case, close it as quick as they can. And a lot of times that is shifting the spotlight from the abuser to the protective parent. And that is so wrong. And CPS is one of the most broken institutions I have ever encountered. And they're a really scary institution to speak out against. I followed this whole saga for a very long time. Okay, questions. Gosh, that topic just makes my blood boil. It makes my whole brain go off kilter. Does the hatred ever go away? Currently co-parenting with supervised visits. So I don't know if the question is relating to, does the narcissist hatred for us ever go away? The answer is no. We haven't seen my ex-husband since 2014, other than this last round of court to terminate his parental rights. And I will tell you, just this week, just yesterday, in fact, he pulled some shenanigans that spun me. And very incredibly sociopathic. Very few people could understand, and I can't share this story without putting identifying details out there. So I'm not going to, but I will tell you, we are free from him. We have absolutely no ties to the family court system. Every single one of you here has as many rights to my kids as he does legally. We are done. And he's still, Father's Day, people reached out to me and said, he's posting pictures of your kids on Father's Day, which blows my mind because I thought he would go on his merry way, pretend we never existed, create new online profiles, start a whole new life with people who don't know his story. But apparently he is still hanging on. So, I don't think that they do, you have to compartmentalize it. Yesterday derailed me. I'm not going to lie. It was a difficult day. But today is a new day and I'm not going to give him my power today. So, it's learning to enjoy life and putting that in the background. And I know it's easier for me to do that with the situation I'm in. But even when I was still in the thick of it, it's being in the moment as much as you can, being one-on-one with your kids, enjoying life. And if you're talking about it the other way, does your hatred for them ever go away? I don't know that I could say I hate. I do. I hate what he's done to my kids. I hate what he's done to my family. But I'm not going to give him that much power. But do I see people who are absolutely consumed by anger and the injustice of all of this? Yeah, and I understand it. I'm not one to judge anybody else's journey. So it's a hard topic. Yeah, Gigi, he is. He's playing victim. And that's, I had hoped that we would move past that, but not so much. But okay, next question. Do you recommend a therapist for a toddler to substantiate emotional abuse? And then what type? So I've never gone into a situation seeking a therapist for my kids for litigation purposes. My mindset, I know the reality that, most of them do not want to testify. They do not, they signed up to do therapy, to be with kids, to help people. They are incredibly uncomfortable. My own therapist told me years ago, don't ever put me on the stand. I'm a mess. I will not present properly or well, and I don't think I can be of help. I will talk to an evaluator off, but please don't ever put me on the stand. So it has frustrated me on occasion, especially with child therapists. It's like, have a backbone. Why did you sign up to do this job if you aren't truly going to be a voice and an advocate for kids? But regardless of how I feel about it, very much of the reality is that they don't want to get involved. Their hands are tied. So my mentality has been, I bring therapists on to help my kids, to give my kids tools. And I don't think of it as a team member when it comes to litigation. Obviously, they can be subpoenaed. The other side could subpoena them to try to discredit them, especially if they've seen behind the mask. But my mentality would not, that's not what I would go into it with. When I have met with a therapist to even interview them for my kids, and at that age, you're probably looking at a play therapist, and a lot of them don't see kids that young. So it can be hard to find a play therapist who sees toddlers, but then you've got that extra layer of, do they understand trauma? Do they understand emotional and psychological abuse? Most, sadly, do not understand cluster B disorders. So at a minimum, you want a therapist who's trauma informed. So it's a very small pool that we have to choose from. My presentation, whenever I've interviewed a therapist for my daughters, is, yes, I will be the first to admit we're in a high conflict custody situation. That's not what I'm here for. I am here to find somebody who can be a neutral third party who can help my daughters to navigate this situation that most adults don't even have the tools to navigate. And so I'm not here because I want you to believe my story. I'm not even going to tell you my story. I'm here because I need somebody to help my kids. And I will tell you that I'm sure now looking back, that made me stand out to them, because most people go into therapy and they're trying to get the therapist to believe how bad this other person is, to believe their side of the story. I know it took me almost 6 years to see behind my ex-husband's mask. It's really unrealistic for me to believe that in 4 sessions a month of not even seeing either of us, that the therapist is going to see what I'm dealing with. It's just, and that's not their job. Their job, in my opinion, is to equip our kids with the tools that they need to deal with difficult situations and difficult people. Gigi says, I highly recommend any therapist who is CBT trauma informed. Great input there. And please read the comments also, because I always say I will never have all of the answers, but so many, this is a combined effort. This is not the Tina show. This is all of us having coffee, sharing our wisdom, sharing our experiences from the battlefield. And there's some really brilliant people in the comments, and so lean on them. And if I'm not answering your question, post your question in there and see if anybody else can chime in and guide you. Very much a group effort here. Okay. Oh, and actually the next question was, my kid's child therapist tells me that she won't go to court. Should I subpoena? So those kind of tie in together. I remember early on, my daughter's therapist said, if you subpoena me, make sure you ask me the right questions, because most people don't. And most attorneys don't even ask the right questions. And, what are the right questions? It's going to be so different with every situation. So many of us, the narcissists are all the same, but they're also incredibly different. They use the same general rule book, but there's variations. And so, I guess it would depend on, if I were in your shoes, what the exact issues are. I look at things as in, is this going to matter in 2 years? Are we talking about abuse that you can prove? And then your child is showing signs of that abuse that the therapist has documented. In that situation, I personally may put the therapist on the stand, but I was in pro se. I didn't have an attorney, but I'll tell you, had I made that decision to subpoena the therapist, that would have been a time I would have consulted with an attorney for strategy purposes, to say, somebody who is very, very skilled in these situations, very domestic violence informed, because I would want them to help me formulate the questions that I need to ask to get to prove what I'm trying to paint, that picture for the court system. Let's see, I'm trying to read the comments, read the questions. This is a good question. How long would you keep a restraining order in place if his behavior is good? And I'm not an attorney, but I will tell you, every narcissist has a different, I almost think of it as a scale, how good they are at impression management. Some of them, I don't care if the spotlight is shining on them and the judge is watching, they can't keep it together and they mess up. Then you've got the ones who a lot of times when they're in sales, when they have high-powered positions, CEOs, their attorneys, their livelihood depends on impression management, selling people on whatever they're peddling. So, my ex-husband, it went back and forth. He was in sales. He's actually brilliant. You wouldn't know that from reading my books, but he probably does have a genius IQ. That may be one of the only things he's told me that is true. I don't know. It's just when they're in this spinning crazy mode, a lot of them cannot keep the masks on, but some of them, it never comes off. It doesn't even shift a little bit. The mask is on. And so I do see a lot of situations where somebody has a restraining order, the ex is on their absolute best behavior, and the second you drop that restraining order, they set the mask down and they are back in full force. That is my fear. And I know there are probably so many of you who can chime in on that particular issue. A restraining order, in my opinion, is a boundary that is put in place by the court system. And it can work to your benefit if you have somebody who violates. I talk to people where their ex has a restraining order and 4 days later gets arrested for sending a horrible text. It's just all over the place. So really, and that's where profiling the person that you're up against really comes into play. You have to know who exactly, where the buttons are, where the triggers are, where the person is on the scale of impression management. But I'll tell you, first of all, I know how hard it is to get a restraining order. I never even bothered to apply for one because my abuse wasn't physical abuse, but I knew by looking him in the eyes that he would take my life if he was given the opportunity. It was that scary rage that was hidden by the mask. And so, I remember calling the domestic violence shelter early on and they said, well, has he ever hit you? And I'm like, no. Has he ever threatened your life? No, he's not stupid enough to do that. He would never put something like that in writing. It's very veiled. How do you sleep at night? Karma's gonna get you, all of those things, to where I was constantly on edge, constantly terrified, jumpy, looking over my shoulder. But had I received one, I don't think there's anything in the world that could have prompted me to drop it, because I know how hard they are to get. And so I can only speak for myself. I personally would not drop a restraining order. A lot of times attorneys try to use that to negotiate. If you drop the restraining order, we'll give you X, Y, and Z. In most states, there's nothing to prevent that person from filing a month down the line and taking more custody, more time, whatever it is. So much of this is a game to them. And so you really have to think about decisions like that very carefully. Yeah, so I was refused one even though he had held a knife to his neck. Even with physical abuse, a lot of times it's your word against the other person's. And so, I see very, very valid situations where they get a temporary restraining order, but then the judge won't make it permanent or won't make it a year or 3 years. So yeah, it's a lot. So anybody have any questions? We went through those pretty quick. Here's another one. I hadn't selected it to do today, but we're just going to throw it out there. What do I do if my son's father keeps insulting me when I am being civil? I would be grateful, because I welcome opportunities to show the court, to paint a picture of who this person is that I'm up against. So, a lot of people who follow my Yellow Rock communication, where you're being friendly, you're being polite, it goes against everything we're taught in these situations. But, you present very well in the court, and you're operating from your authentic place of truth. So I will stand by Yellow Rock any day of the week. You can Google it and find more on my blog about it or on my YouTube channel. But what I tell people is, so if you're putting something in writing and you're doing it for maybe strategic purposes to document a situation and, to put it out there in writing. But a lot of people will say to me, I would not send that because he's going to attack. He's going to come back even harder. It's going to be horrible. And I would say, I would welcome that, because I am operating from my place of truth. I am being the person who I am. And if he wants to show his true colors, that's on him. That has nothing to do with me. And that will get me from point A to point B faster in the family court system if he's not keeping his mask on. So in a situation like that, where the other parent is just really difficult to deal with, first of all, consider the source. If you're sending me a message, my guess is that you're dealing with a horrible, toxic person, diagnosed or not. And so, one of the girls who's actually here joining us this morning, in one of the groups that I do, she used the analogy of, you would not go into a hardware store looking for an avocado. If you do, you're being unrealistic about your expectations. You're setting yourself up for failure. If you are expecting a toxic individual to be cordial and polite, that's going to be some internal work to do. That it's, you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because that's my guess. He's not capable of that. And when we leave these people, especially when we end the relationship, and even more so if they have abandonment issues, you have triggered something so deep in them, and we likely will have targets for a very long time, if not forever. And that's hard to hear when you're going through this. For those of you who joined me late, we have zero contact with my ex-husband. But yesterday he pulled some shenanigans, and it was triggering, and it took me right back to where I was 10 years ago. So, keep all of those things in mind. Okay. I, yeah, you can't get lemonade from a lime, but you could probably make some great drinks with limes too. um, all right. I'm gonna sign off for now. It's my daughter's last weekend before school starts. For all of you here in California dealing with the wildfires, I am so sorry. Whether I know I've heard from many of my clients and people who have been evacuated this week, and my heart goes out to you. I know, everybody's complaining about the smoke in the air. I have nothing to complain about. The smoke is obviously an inconvenience, but I'm not being evacuated from my home. So we're all sending you light and prayers and lots of love. Um, Take care, everyone. Have a good day and a great weekend.